document that's put together that explains from different people's points of view who and what he is and what he was doing at the time. The church in China right now is about ready to explode. We fund missionaries there. They don't have Bibles. They meet in pig pens because that keeps the people in the suits in China from coming and searching for them. Mm-hmm. They meet in sewers. There's 150 million of them amassing. They don't have Bibles. They don't have doctrines. They don't even have denominations. All they know is there is a Jesus. They believe in him. They believe in his resurrection. They believe that he is sent here from God, and they call upon his name, and that's the end of the story. And there are things going on there that you could spend another hour just talking about. And why? Because they are not, well, I will quote Pastor Jung, who I met with last week. He said, I spent 26 years in prison, and I was more free there to worship than I am in the U.S., that y'all are in the U.S., because you are captive of your churches and your clergy and your doctrine and your beliefs, and they don't matter. The only thing that matters is seeking God. That's it. And that brings us back to Gnosticism, because it is completely and totally an internal issue.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we talked about that a little bit, but that story of the church in China right now, and it's not the church that has been received the political imprimatur of the state in China. The one that I think former President George Bush told them they needed to get under control was this church, which has seekers who know there's a God.
Yes.
No gospel, no Bibles, no buildings, no denominations. Just here, the inner knowing that there's something that points to this Jesus. And see, to me, that's exactly where I've been going now for about 18 months, trying to tell people this is an inner journey. And I understand that I'm really going against the tide. I understand that you go against the grain in what you're doing as well. And the reason why I wanted to bring you on was because I wanted you to provide that testimony too, because I think people need to hear this. And the work that you're doing in publishing is obviously something that puts out into the press media in a very accessible, I mean, these books are not expensive books, first off, folks, and this is not an advertisement. Let me just say this. This book here, I read it over this weekend. This is the Gnostic Scriptures, History, Theology, and Sacred Feminine. It has the Gospel of Philip in it. And Joseph, you could probably do a far better excursion through this. What I want to say is this. Why do you read these books? Read them because you can, because you have an opportunity right now to view history and faith from a perspective you've not seen. The other thing I want to bring up, and I want to talk a little bit about it, Joseph, is the actual translational work that's done in these books. I read many of the books years ago under a title of the Ancient and Forbidden books, I believe. I read this 30 years ago. At that time, those translations were horrible. Those translations were difficult to read. They were arcane. I don't know who translated them from what. They were very difficult reading. And as I was going through your translational work, I found these books actually read very accessibly. To the point where I could hand this to my 13-year-old son, and I believe he would be able to read this with great ability to consume what's been put in the books. Can you give me a little bit of background on the translations and how you got such clear translations?
Sure. That was one of the reasons that we began the whole company was the translators of many years ago, even 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, and certainly back beyond that, they believed that if you translated the text into some quasi-Elizabethan English, it gave it more gravitas.
Yes.
And it was wordy. It was clumsy. It was cumbersome.
Do you need to get that?
No, it's fine. Therefore, what we did was we went through first and we picked out every major text that we could that was of a particular scripture. We compared those texts. We got the originals, and when I say the originals, what we could find in the original language. For example, Ethiopic or Ge'ez in the first book of Enoch. And we compared the text. We rendered them into modern English, and there were times, a lot of times, that the text did not match. One translator said one thing, one the other. In those particular times, we went back to the original text that we had, the original language, and we broke out the lexicons and the dictionaries, and we rendered those texts the way that I believe they should be. We had to make some choices. We made the choices based on what was going on at the time, what they were talking about at the time. Mm-hmm. We tried to fill in some of the holes. Where we could not fill in the holes, we actually put, this is not in the text. For example, there's a quote in, I think, the book of Philip that said, Jesus loved Mary and kissed her often on the... And there's a hole in the text. You don't know what it is. Now, we assume it's mouth. It could be hand or forehead. Mm-hmm. So we render what we think it's going to be, but we always put in parentheses, this word is missing. We don't know. We're rendering this, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing that I decided to do, which flew in the face of everything, is we did not put any footnotes in our books. All the notes are intertext. So you don't have to jump around and try to find what it's referencing. The definition is going to be right there in the sentence, in parentheses or in brackets. And if you're a scholar, you hate it. If you're part of the masses, you love it.
Yes.
And I'm not writing for my professor. I'm writing to allow people to have access to this. So we broke a lot of rules that if you read some of our some of the reviews on, for example, Diglot is a scholarly review, and it will say, really loved his work, wish he had footnotes. You don't need footnotes because everything is right there in the text. So, we broke a few rules, but it made it very accessible, and I believe that's why it became best-selling translations.
So I guess in the closing minutes here, your publishing company was begun in 2006, is that correct?
2004.
2004?
Mm-hmm.
And you are publishing worldwide. Are you publishing in different languages as well?
No, we actually are
English.
Yeah, all English, although you can find our books from Australia and Japan all the way around to the UK and the EU, which actually surprised me, Randy. I was online one day Googling the books, trying to figure out what was going on, and they popped up in India, and they popped up in Australia, and they popped up in Japan, and they had great reviews. And I'm going... I looked at my wife and I said, what? What is going on here? That we have touched such a nerve that the world is actually paying attention. And it reminded me of the scripture, what good can come out of Nazareth?
Yeah.
What good can come out of Blount County, Alabama?
Well, there you go. But, that's the beauty of English, is that it is a global language. And,
yes.
That was probably by design a long time ago, but use it. You have a number of different titles that are not within the realm of what we would consider to be these ancient texts. You maybe just want to give us a little bit of that. I noticed, for instance, you have some books here on ministry, for instance. Dark Night of the Soul.
Dark Night of the Soul is, I guess it's my own catharsis. Dark Night is my attempt to say what we have said today, that... if you want to try to build a doctrine against what you consider heresy, it will get larger and larger and larger until it crushes the believer. Doctrines turn into Phariseeism. What you really want, what you're really searching for, is not what the doctrine is, but what it points to. And if you use it as a road sign, that's all you should do. So we are seeking the heart of God. And when you do that, when you start really, really seeking, then you enter into that world of St. John and St. Teresa and the rest of the mystics that said you will get to a point where you know he's there, but he's inaccessible, and you keep on rapping against the door. Like, for example, the cloud of unknowing says that you bang against the door of heaven, and you have this dark night where you feel, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, my God, why have you forsaken me? And we all go through that, but when we come out the other side, there really is joy in the morning. But there's never joy in the morning in the Bible. There's joy in the morning in the experience of God personally. Now, the Bible may lead you there. It might give you a glimpse, but that is not the journey. The journey is to God, to the heart of God. And that's what the book is all about.
I actually can't think of a better way to end this interview than with that, because I think it summarized the place that both of us went in this interview. I want to thank you for coming on with me, Joseph, and again, go ahead and give your website for your publishing company, please.
It's www.fifth, that's F-I-F-T-H, fifthestatepub.com. It's www.fifthestatepub.com.
And we will put links up with this show on the show page. That's going to wrap it up for this time. This is Threshing Floor. I'm Randy Maugans. The truth is out there. It's in you. Keep looking for it.
Thank you, Randy.